What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with Cheesehead TV and your Packers Daily Chat, coming to you live here because that's where we want to be. We want to be all over the internet where you are, Packers fans worldwide. We're dedicated, we're devoted to you guys and everybody who's already here in the chat. It's crazy. People showing up early, typing in questions. It's like you love the Green Bay Packers just like we do, and we thank you for it. We're here to have a good time. Starting out with Joshua, who says, Rodgers is 62 TDs away from 400 for his career. Do you think he gets there in the next 2 years? Yes, I do. How's that? Dad, you're here. What's up, Sosa? It's good to see you, my son. Thank you for arriving on time. Jesse, thank you very much. Very kind of you to say. Today, Nagler turns 83 years old. Thank you, Matub. Thank you for that. The question has gone off the screen here, but someone did ask about Cole Madison and the possibility that he might play tackle either in practice or in a preseason game. I think he'll definitely see some reps at tackle in practice. Now, whether they put him there in a preseason game, I think it will depend on how he looks. I know initially they wanted him to concentrate on the interior, but I think they'll try to utilize him as much as they can up and down the line. But again, I think his kind of the bulk of his time will be spent probably at guard. Maybe they'll even move him into at center as a kind of experiment, so to speak. But he has that ability, and I know there was some talk of that initially when he got drafted. Although they did say he would primarily start along the interior. Now that was a year ago. We'll see what happens when we get to camp in 8 days. But look, I'm really curious to see what he looks like when the pads come on. A year away from the game, yes, it's one thing to, step on that field in OTAs in the spring and, know the offense and know what you're doing and look the part, etc. It's a whole other thing to put those pads on when the hitting starts. And can you hold up? Are you still in game shape? Are you still in football shape? Are you able to get into football shape? Can you still play the game after a year away? We'll see. I mean, I'm pulling for the guy. I'm rooting for the young man, no doubt about it. But he is definitely one of the players I'm most curious to see once we get to Green Bay. Awesome Nagler's Never Right yesterday. Thank you. How freaking cool was it to speak to Hall of Famer Jerry Kramer? Matt, it's I want to say 4th or 5th time I've spoken to Jerry. It's always a pleasure. He is one of the nicest individuals you will ever meet. The first time I ever talked to him was on the red carpet for Lombardi here in New York. But yeah, he was amazing, incredibly complimentary, and just always a joy to speak to Mr. Kramer, and he was great. And if you haven't checked out the podcast yet, it is available both on Cheesehead TV and at our Patreon, patreon.com/CheeseheadTV, and it's available to everybody. You don't need to be a Patreon member to hear it. I wanted to get as wide an audience as possible because they are still doing their Kickstarter campaign to try and fund the rest of the movie. I highly recommend you check it out. The trailer alone is worth kicking in a few bucks for because they're doing some really great work there around Jerry's life. Did I miss the Madden game with Grossi? Did you miss it? No, sir. This Friday, 1 p.m. Eastern, in this here studio, live on this here channel. You're going to get to see me take on Grossi Posse. I can't wait to see the joint practices against the Texans, Watt and Clowney versus Bakhtiari and Jair versus Hopkins. I am right there with you. In fact, when Corey and I were kind of mapping out what we wanted to do for camp, initially we were going to be there for the opening and then stay through family night. But then, you're looking at the schedule and you think, well, then the Texans come to town prior to that first preseason game. Well, we should stay that week too, right? I mean, obviously. So, yeah, I'm very excited about it. The first time the Packers have had anyone into Green Bay for camp since the Mike Sherman era when they had the Buffalo Bills in town. And as you mentioned, some great star players. Obviously, Wisconsin's own J.J. Watt will be in attendance. Who knows if Clowney will be there? Hasn't signed a long-term deal, hasn't signed his tender, the franchise tag. Maybe he's traded by then. Maybe to Green Bay. I'm kidding. Of course he's not going to be traded to Green Bay. But, yeah, it's going to be exciting to see everything, all the festivities, all the hoopla, so to speak, around that joint practice session. How do I get tickets to Grossi Nags the Madden contest? Just show up here on the YouTube channel, baby. Watch me wipe the floor with Grossi. It's going to be a good time. Nagler, where can I buy Packers tickets? Caden, I'm glad you asked. The best place to get anything having to do with Green Bay Packers tickets is to go to cheeseheadtv.com. Check out Ticket King. The link there is about halfway down the page, or any post page. It'll take you to Ticket King. They've been around since 1992. Preseason games, postseason games, regular season games, both home and away. They have all your Green Bay Packers ticket needs taken care of. Ticket King. Check them out. Besides the questions about the new head coach, wide receiver depth behind Adams, and nailing down the starters on the O-line, is this the most complete Packers team we've seen in the last few years? Ooh, well, you just named a bunch of questions heading into it, to which I would add safety depth, inside linebacker. How does that shake out? Especially past Blake Martinez. I think on paper, yeah, they are talented. I don't know about complete. The most complete in the last few years. I guess maybe. I thought they looked pretty damn good on paper last year heading into the regular season, and then injuries struck. You never really know what's going to happen when the depth has to step forward and is called upon. But yeah, on paper, do they look good, solid? Sure. Lots going to change between now and kickoff September 5th. Do you think the running back we drafted is going to get significant number of snaps this season? Walter, at first blush, I doubt it, but that could change once you get to camp and he starts turning heads and makes it hard to keep him off the field. Initially, though, I do think Aaron Jones will get the bulk of the carries, and I think Jamal Williams will spell him. But look, if the kid is good and shows up and is rock solid in his his assignment, sure, is decent in pass pro, shows an adeptness both in the zone scheme, which that certainly appears to be the case from his tape at Notre Dame, and in the passing game, holds onto the ball, gets yak, etc. And like I said, makes it tough to keep him off the field. Yeah, there may be a path to playing time for him, but more than anything, even before all of that, he has to show that he can contribute on special teams. Number one thing that's going to land him on the roster and then on the active roster on game day is to be able to contribute on special teams. Because without that contribution, it's going to be hard to justify. Favorite Packers Super Bowl team? Ooh, Jesse, those are tough questions. I'm just biased because of my age. It's got to be the '96 team for me, just because I grew up and they were so bad and they're so awful. And for the longest time, I thought they were never going to be good again. I thought I would never see them in the playoffs, let alone in a Super Bowl. And then all of a sudden they go on a run, they win a Super Bowl, first time in 30 years, etc. That team will always have a special place in my heart. Obviously, 2010 is amazing. I have read about and seen the tapes of and watched countless times all of the great historic wins. But look, for me, it's always going to be the '96 team. That's just kind of ingrained in my life. First-time head coach, offensive system, offensive staff, second-year defensive system, and a lot of new defenders. Does this team get to 9-7? It's a good question, Duke, and it's something I've kind of been bringing up all offseason. And 9-7 sounds like, I don't know, for some fans, apparently, it's not a good season. And look, a lot of it depends on how they're playing when, right? If they stumble out of the gate and then turn it around and are hot at the end of the year, 9-7 sounds a hell of a lot better than they come out scoring 30 points a week, catch people by surprise, and all of a sudden get figured out and kind of fizzle out towards the end of the season. 9-7, oh man, there are problems in Green Bay. I mean, those two narratives could, alternate universes like the Spider-Verse, right? Both of those could happen. So, yeah, obviously got to let it play out. I think, yes. Can they get to 9-7? Absolutely. Can they get past 9-7? Certainly. But 9-7 with the issues you're talking about there, especially the new head coach with a new offense, yeah. I mean, it's not a given by any stretch of the imagination. But a 3-game improvement from last year with a new rookie head coach, it's not crazy, not terrible. Are you not going to the December game in New York now? Up in the air. We'll see. I'll have to do a post-game show, so I'll have to be somewhere where I can broadcast, but that doesn't necessarily mean I have to do it from here. Stay tuned. Nagler, do we have to get another beer at training camp? I mean, twist my arm? Yeah, of course. Hey, Aaron, who do you think has the best potential for kick punt returns after Davis? Oh, man, ask me again in 8 days when we see these people on the field. Right now, it's all conjecture, right? I mean, we've seen Shepard, et cetera. These guys have returnability, and we know that's why a number of them were undoubtedly brought in to kind of push for a spot there. But they're going to have to contribute in other ways as well. And until we see who's doing that and who's maybe turning heads and who's maybe running with the first team ahead of some other guys, or at least running with the second team, until we start seeing that shake out, it's really, you're just kind of parroting what you've read about these guys, right? So patience, we'll get there. 8 more days. Let's head over to Twitter, see what's going on in the old tweet machine, with Christian starting us off saying, with 2 guys high on the wide receiver depth chart, 2 guys high on the cornerback depth chart, and an important player in the middle of the field, and I'm guessing this is Oren Burks that you're talking about there, I say the class of 18 is the biggest difference maker between winning and losing. What say you? Christian, I will say, I don't know if it's the biggest difference, but it's certainly extremely important in a way that most people don't talk about in the offseason. And this is something my former colleague Tom Silverstein always harps on pretty much each and every year. In regards to the rookies get a lot of attention, get talked about a lot, get a lot of publicity, etc. But really, the improvement from any team, but it's the Packers, especially in past years, because they were so dependent on draft and develop. It's a little different this year because they did make so many, big time moves in free agency. But that doesn't mean that what you're saying here isn't right, in the sense that it's last year's draft class, and that jump they have to make from year 1 to year 2, their development, especially with the guys you're mentioning here, EQ, MVS, Josh Jackson, Jair Alexander. Those are the guys who have to become the core of your football team, right? They're the ones who have to ascend to a level where, okay, you're not a rookie anymore, and we can't be excited about flashes. That time is over. It's time for you to produce now and to start to become a part of the core of this football team. And that all starts in 8 days. So in that sense, yes, I very much agree. Uncultured Barbarian, always good for some Grossi smack talk. With Grossi just coming back from vacation, do you think he is unprepared for the upcoming Madden grudge match on Friday? Look, I don't want any excuses. This man's going to come in here and be talking about how he's been in Amsterdam, whatever the hell he's been doing, and that's all great and fine and wonderful. But he's had a week now back on American soil where he can sit there in his house. He's a teacher. He's got summers off. He's not doing anything else. He's sitting there practicing right now. I know he is. So, no excuses for when I kick his butt. All right. Matthew asked 2 questions. 1, can you see Aaron Jones becoming too good that he plays himself out of a new contract in Green Bay? And 2, what is most likely, Martinez has all-pro season or Jair has an all-pro season? I'll take the second part first. I think it's much more likely that Jair has an all-pro season ahead of Martinez, both because of what I think their play on the field will be reflective of, but also because I think it's going to be really hard for Martinez to get all-pro votes over some of the other big names that are out there, who, the Bobby Wagners, the Luke Kuechly's of the world. It's going to be hard for him to crack that lineup, all-pro wise. But I do think Jair has got a legit chance. He showed, like I was just talking about, he showed definite flashes last year. If he can become a lot more consistent, put it together for a full season, there's a chance. I'm not locking it in by any stretch of the imagination. I know that his stated goal, that he wants to be an all-pro this year, but hey, first things first, let's make him a viable week-to-week starter, shutdown guy you can count on. I'll take it. And as far as your first question, can you see Aaron Jones becoming too good? I mean, what's too good? I mean, could we see a Melvin Gordon type situation? Maybe. I mean, they're not even close to coming, as far as the workload Melvin Gordon's been given comparative to Aaron Jones. We haven't approached that. And he hasn't stayed on the field. He hasn't stayed healthy. So if he stays healthy, is incredibly productive, and then all of a sudden, they don't want to pay him, I have a hard time believing that would be the case. Takes 2 to tango. We'll see what the running back market looks like. Maybe Melvin Gordon resets it. Maybe they start to get a little bit more expensive. I tend to doubt it. But hey, we don't really know. We don't have a track record with Gutekunst and the position. It certainly appears like he values it the same way Ted Thompson did, but he hasn't been faced with this kind of choice yet. My hunch would be they would find middle ground and keep him in the fold. That's just my hunch sitting here a couple years before we even have to deal with this scenario. All right, everybody, let's go back to the live chat, see what's going on. Nags, how can we get you new subscribers? Beg, borrow, and steal, man. I don't know. I'm just a terrible hype man is what it is. But yes, please subscribe, YouTube. If we can get to 10,000 by the time camp opens, can we get to 10,000 in 8 days? I doubt it, but that'd be great. I don't know, man. I just don't know. Packers playoff, much more likely. Trubisky is not fantastic, and he has yet to have a great receiving core. Not sure what one has to do with the other, but I think you are vastly discounting the talent in the Chicago Bears wide receiving core. I'll say that. A lot of season left. I hope so. In 8 days, Nagy's favorite saying will be ask me again in September, and early returns are. I don't know about asking me again in September, but early returns definitely, because they will be early returns. The ask me in September stuff is always about like crystal ball nonsense, right? If you don't want to get ask me again in September response, don't ask after one practice, are they going to win week 1 or are they going to start 3-1? You don't want to get a pat answer, don't ask a, impossible to know question. It's not difficult. Can we get Corey to come make an appearance? I don't know. He was having a very important meeting earlier. I don't know if it's over now, but yeah, at the moment, no. Great interview with Rodgers from Sims. Dominic, I just watched that this afternoon, the walk and talk on the golf course there from Mr. Sims and Mr. Rodgers, and some of it was good, some of it was pretty pointless, but I loved the bit, and I wrote this on the blog, I loved the bit where Rodgers was talking about the mechanics and the stuff he works on in the offseason, his core, and how it all ties to the legs and the importance of a quarterback's legs when it comes to playing the position. Everything from escapability to generating power for the throws, etc. Of course, that's the one point in the entire interview when the wind kicks up and they're being quiet because they're on a golf course, so it's really hard to hear what Rodgers is saying. But I highly encourage you to check it out because that is that's Rodgers talking high-level quarterback stuff that, I geek out on, and I know some of you will too. That's a great question. Justin asks, do you think it's lame for grown men to wear jerseys of players younger than them? I always go back to Boogie Nights. Wear what you dig. I will admit, I have had that kind of, in years past, I've had the moment of like, oh my God, these players are younger than I am, and I'm, a fan of this team, and I'm a fan of a player who is like much younger than I am, and that is a little weird, because when you're a kid, you're growing up and idolizing these guys, that kind of makes sense, right? Then you're a grown-ass man, and you're like, oh, this 20-year-old, he's freaking awesome. Wait, that sounds weird. So I get what you're saying, but if somebody wants to wear a jersey, let them wear a jersey. It doesn't hurt you, it doesn't hurt anybody. It's cool. Wear what you dig. Hi, Frank. On Amos's Twitter, he commented on his Madden rating and hinted on potentially returning kicks. Do you think that's a possibility, or is it too risky since he starts at safety? I think he was kidding, but who knows? I would be surprised if that were the case. But hey, find out in 8 days. Hit the like button. Yeah, Paul, you tell him. Biggest impact, Charles Woodson or Reggie White? Ooh, Brian. Brian with the hot ones. Look, Charles Woodson is one of my all-time favorite players. He's probably, 1, 2, 1A on the list of Ted Thompson acquisitions right after Rodgers. His importance cannot be overstated when it comes to, what he did in Green Bay. But look, all of everything I just said, he doesn't come close to touching the importance of Reggie White to the Packers, to the franchise, to making it a viable destination for free agents, to changing the landscape of the NFL with the decision to come to Green Bay. Like I don't think people today, especially internet world, really understands the landscape of the NFL when Reggie White made the decision and picked the Green Bay Packers. It was an absolute monsoon, tidal wave, use your metaphor, whatever, of change, and made Green Bay all of a sudden was legit after, decades of futility. It cannot be overstated. The impact and the importance of Reggie White coming to Green Bay and the trajectory of the Packers, along with everything else, Ron Wolf, Brett Favre, Mike Holmgren, etc. Reggie White coming in, that was it. That was the moment it all started to turn around. There he is. Ask and you shall receive. What's happening in 8 days, Corey?
Training camp.
There you go. So there you go. Your little daily dose of Banky right there. Corey Banky keeping it down here at LiveX. Malcolm mentioning the 63 overall rating for Turner. I mentioned this on Monday. Yes, that is a ridiculous rating, but none of it really matters. But I suspect that will be up sooner rather than later. Rodgers, again, mentioning him, we just talked about his interview with Chris Sims. He, unprompted, gave Billy Turner a bunch of love. I'm very much in the boat with Aaron Rodgers. I think Turner is going to surprise a lot of people. He's going to really help solidify the interior of their line. See you at Kroll's after camp begins. You are absolutely right. If you want to find Aaron Nagler at training camp, check out Kroll's after practice, because that's where I have lunch like 85% of the time. Whoa, did he cut his hair? Andy, you bet he did. Will Corey show some love to J.K. Scott? No. MVS over or under 800 yards and 6 TDs? Whew. Andrew, give me just under. I think, 750, 5 touchdowns. How's that? Also, that sounds suspiciously like a fantasy football question. Please answer my question. Malcolm, what is your question? Malcolm, I can't see it. All I see is your question asking me to answer your question, but I see no other question. Week 1 will determine the division. Is it too early to drink? Hey, it's my birthday. I can drink whenever I want. I'm going to start right after this. Krolls or Culvers? Oh, Mike, it's Krolls all day. Do you think that Alexander should push inside the slot corner when 3 cornerbacks are on the field and push Josh Jackson outside in that situation? Or should King and Jair both just be purely outside corners? I really like Jair inside in the situation you're talking about here. I don't know how the rotation is going to kind of balance out now that, we got Tremont back in the mix. You mentioned Josh Jackson. You got Tony Brown vying for snaps. We'll see how they line up on the first day, how the pecking order is kind of established from the get-go. Obviously, that can and will change throughout camp. It was interesting because last year, I was surprised that they used Tremont inside when they went 3 corners. They kicked him inside. I didn't love that. Now, obviously, they know way more than I do, but I'd prefer keeping Tremont on the outside on the perimeter opposite Josh Jackson and Kevin King, and then using Jair at the slot. Look, and it's not just about Jair's athletic ability as a coverage man. It's his athletic ability to get to the quarterback from that slot position. I love him on some of those blitzes. So yeah, I prefer him there. Pettin, it would appear, maybe disagrees, but again, things can change. We'll see how they line up week 1 or day 1 of camp. And we'll see what happens when those pads come on. All right, everybody, I got to jump. Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks so much for all the questions. I can't tell you how much it means to me that you guys make Cheesehead TV part of your Packers routine, especially in the offseason when there's nothing going on. It's great to have people just show up and talk Packers and Green Bay and what have you. It's just great. It really means a lot. Like, subscribe, share, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of it, Instagram. We're everywhere that you want to be. We're devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. And hey, if you do like what we do, please check out our Patreon, patreon.com/cheeseheadtv. All we ask is $5 a month to support everything we do. You get exclusive access to my podcast, Nagler's Never Right, which will be kicking into high gear once camp starts. Just tons of good stuff happening at Cheesehead TV. We'd love to have you along. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a great night.